Everybody, welcome to another episode of Banished Big Brother. I'm Zach Varnell, and I'm joined here as always by Elizabeth Melton.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so let's get right into it. So, the first up, we have a story that you had brought to my attention. So, town council member proposes internet and phone ban after flock contract is canceled. So, this is from privacyguides.org. So, it says after the town. Let me bring this in front of me so I can look. Sorry, still getting situated a little bit. There we go. After the town of Bandera, Texas voted 3-2 to end its contract with the dystopian surveillance company Flock, a pro-Flock council member proposed a ban of phones, cameras, the internet, and nearly all technology in a childish outburst more fitting for a preschool student than a public representative. I don't know, that's given a lot of credit to public representatives, but it says the vote came months after outrage from residents who joined many other cities in canceling their contracts with the up-and-coming surveillance nightmare company. Council members Debbie Breen, Deanna McCabe, and Tammy Morrow all voted in favor of banning the surveillance apparatus, while council members Lynn Palmer and Jeff Flowers voted to keep the contract with Flock. And Jeff Flowers is the one that then wrote this silly thing. And here is what he wrote. It's in part, anyway. I won't read all of it, but it's the Bandera Declaration of Digital Independence. And basically, he talks about, you know, for months he's had to listen to the outcry of people talking about this and calling it dangerous and criticize him for being in favor of it. And, you know, a camera at his house stopped a crime or helped catch a criminal or something once. And then he says, to ensure our historic county seat becomes the most quote unquote traditional sanctuary in Texas, I have requested the following for the next city council agenda: a modest proposal for digital device prohibition, a total ban on all cellular and GPS capable devices for all operation within the city limits. If we are truly to be quote unquote private, we must leave our smartphones at the city line. Then it says a modest proposal for the total surveillance abolition, residential and commercial, a total ban on all outward facing cameras, including residential doorbells and commercial CCTV or security camera technology. If municipal safety cameras are invasive, then no business owner or homeowner should be allowed to monitor the public. We will remove every lens in town. So before I go on, I mean, he obviously doesn't understand that. I think the difference between spying on the public in public versus people having cameras on their own property. So, oh, so far, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think childish is a very good adjective to use to describe this individual. I, so I have several things, and one being that this is something that I have to answer. It seems like every day, if you see a discussion about flock contract or flock cameras, there's always going to be someone who says, but you carry around a smartphone, but you do this or that or the other, which is some completely voluntary thing that people do, which honestly, I do wish that people would pay more attention to those devices. And I I think it would be a good idea to limit those devices as well, but you cannot compare voluntarily giving up your data, a cell phone that you can leave home whenever you choose to tracking people in public, tracking their every move without their consent. And I feel like a lot of times it's very ingenuous when they even use that argument. They know the difference, but I think that there are some people who honestly haven't taken the time to think about that and know the difference. But it's just absolute silliness. And the vehemence with which some of these people react to the elimination of flock cameras, it's like they have a personal vested interest in it.
Yeah, he has
And
to.
that makes me very, very suspicious. Yeah, it's like, what are you getting from this that you're so upset that the contract is going to be eliminated?
Yep. And then his last 3 bullet points here, and he keeps on doing a modest proposal for. So, I mean, what was that, Jonathan Swift, a modest proposal? And you know more about literature than I do. So his modest proposal was to eat the children, right? I think that was right. But then
Perhaps, perhaps, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna
I think so. But then I don't know, what was he satirizing? Because I'm sure he wasn't doing this in favor of surveillance and, a totalitarian surveillance state. It just seems like this is one of those things where it's like, you're using this silly historical piece of literature, but probably turning on its head. And again, I don't know. I don't know what the point of
Yeah,
the
I
article or the
think
book was.
I think a lot of people probably do things like that simply because they've heard it before and have no idea what they're referencing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I will say that as I've listened to city councils and county commissions argue in favor of surveillance, I hear some of the same talking points over and over again. And this is entirely conjecture, but it kind of makes you wonder. A lot of times when you hear those same talking points, it's like a lobbyist. It makes me feel like a lobbyist is focused on particular individuals to get them to use their products or vote a certain way. And it just makes me feel like that perhaps behind the scenes there is some sort of incentive for particular individuals to maybe particular individuals that have shown themselves to be corruptible
Yeah.
to vote in alignment with these things and give them particular talking points.
Well, I did look it up here, and a modest proposal. In it, his modest proposal was to eat the children, and it was because at the time, I guess there was the Irish famine going on, and he was trying to, basically mock cold mathematical language, like of an economic policy or something, to suggest
Right.
this. And the idea was that it's like horrifying for anybody to read it, and it's supposed to draw attention to the suffering of the poor people who didn't have food. So yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's kind of silly to. It's like, I'm going to adopt that language to draw attention to the poor, neglected government who now doesn't get to spy on people as effectively.
Yeah. That's yeah.
All right, here's
Seems counterintuitive to me.
for sure. Here's his last 3 bullet points. So, the proposal for total municipal and commercial decommissioning, a total termination of all internet services, and electronic record keeping. We are going back to 1880, paper, ledgers, and cash only. It says the fiscal reality of quote unquote freedom. So it's so silly, like the things he has to put in quotations, like, freedom, traditional, and then I guess people calling it the free state of Bandera, or I don't know if he was the one that coined that or if other people were using that. Quote unquote invasive. It's like, but he's quoting things that, I mean, these are invasive. It's not
Right.
invasive with, air quotes. But anyway, it says this decision didn't just cost us our safety. So I guess nobody was safe in this town before Flock. It costs us our wallets. By canceling this project, the council didn't just throw away a state grant and in parentheses, free money. So this guy's also economically illiterate, I guess. They spent 15,000 of your local tax dollars out of pocket to back out of the deal. So sunk cost fallacy means we have to go through with it. We have to spy on everybody because we've already done some idiotic stuff and cost you money. Bragging about fiscal responsibility while paying $15,000 for nothing is a very bad deal for Bandera. Well, yeah, it is a very bad deal, but it's why you should have never started this to begin with.
Yeah,
like,
maybe that's an argument for thinking through what you're doing before you do it. Before voting for stupid stuff.
I mean, that's an absurd thing to say. It's like, well, we got you into this situation where it cost us to get out. Therefore, rather than eat this $15,000 one time, we're just going to have to go through with paying Flock every year. And, you know, maybe it is from a grant that's not free money. That money came from somewhere. It came from the taxpayers. You know, the people in that town are taxpayers. So
I have actually talked with political representatives about this, that what is this mindset that if there's a grant for it, we have to take it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is, that you're throwing away free money if you don't take this thing. And they don't look into it. They don't investigate. They don't consider unforeseen consequences. It's just, it's free. We have to take it.
Yeah. Can we use that against them? Like a free grant to draft legislation to ban flock cameras or something. I don't know. I'm sure they would look into that one though. Because, you know, we can pay them maybe a couple $100 to look into that. We can't do flock
That's
money.
That's an interesting concept though. We probably could get creative if we did that, if we come up with grants to get them to do things that we actually want them to do.
Yeah. And then he ends, or he says, a history lesson. In the 1880s, privacy in this county seat was non-existent. When a stranger rode into Bandera, the marshal gave them an interview, not space. The livery stable registered their horse's brand, and merchants watched their every move. Anonymity was for outlaws. Accountability was for citizens. So, because things were not great in the past, that's our... I don't know. It doesn't even follow. It's like, now we're going to technologically watch you. And that's cool because in the old times, I guess he's saying that the idiots that are against flock, they want traditional old style, leave me alone. But that was never the case. It's like, well, even if that's true, you can still want a thing even if it wasn't historically like that.
Well, yeah, that's just dumb.
It is dumb.
And who would want to go to a town where the sheriff had to interview you before you came anyway? That's not good either. It's like,
yeah. And is the marshal everywhere at once? Does the marshal ever have to sleep? Is he standing on the street corner recording your comings and goings at all time? It's like, no, there probably, was a marshal keeping an eye on things, but then it's not the same as a AI camera that works 24/7, never sleeps, never complains, never needs a pay raise or takes a vacation, and is going to record you every single time you go by.
So this was in Arizona?
I think it's Texas.
Texas?
Did I read that? Let me just see. Where is Bandera?
I'm just wondering, were they even a state then? The time that he's referencing, maybe it wasn't, that state wasn't even a state because...
Yeah, it was Texas.
Okay.
So when did Texas become a state?
I don't know off the top of my head.
When did
But
Texas become a state?
it's like,
1845. So they had been a state for, I guess, like 35 years or something
okay,
during the
so
time
they
he's talking about.
still should have been subjected to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure these people wouldn't argue. It's like, oh, that was fine then. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't have wanted spying and invasive, privacy measures if I was alive in 1880 either. Okay, what's the point of this?
Right, right. It sounds like he needs some education in logical fallacies
Yeah.
because, yeah, that's just everything that he's saying here is ridiculous. It's like if you don't allow extremes, invasive extremes, then you're against anything at all.
Yeah.
And you can be against privacy invading technologies without being against technology altogether. And, like Ring doorbells, I'm perfectly happy with banning Ring doorbells. And generally, I'm not a fan of banning things that private individuals use, but I'll go along with that one.
Yeah, no, I figured some of those things you'd be like, oh, sounds good to me. Cash only. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it.
Well, and people, they'll always say, well, as you're posting this from your smartphone, well, I'm not posting it from my smartphone. I don't own a smartphone. People just make an assumption that you're walking around with apps following you everywhere you go. And there are people that care about privacy and don't do things like that.
Yeah. But even, you already hit on this, but it's like you can choose to carry a smartphone. That's your decision. But it was nobody's decision to, surround our county with flock cameras to where you can't leave your house without passing one.
Other than the government officials and police.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
The uh, it, I would be against it no matter what, but at least if there was some sort of referendum, they might have a leg to stand on.
yep. Well, any last thing on this silliness before we move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. Well, it's moving on, but kind of staying on the same topic of tyrants who want to ban things. Um, so Keir Starmer, now the former Prime Minister of the UK, so a couple weeks back he put on X, "We are banning social media access for under 16s. These days, kids must find their feet in a world where technology intrudes into every area of their life. I just can't let it go on anymore, so we're giving children back their childhoods." So this is another one where it's like, I bet you think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea that kids aren't on social media, or if they are, they use it a lot less. And, not just social media, but screens in general. But is the answer to ban it completely like this is happening, or like they're trying to do?
Yeah, it's another example of the state parenting, stepping into the role of parenting children, which I'm against. But either way, that to me is just a surface level attempt to eventually make it to where you have to show your ID to get online, period.
Yeah.
Because if you are trying to start an account and you have to prove that you're over a certain age, everybody's going to have to do that. It's not going to impact just children, it's going to impact everyone. And it's basically ending online anonymity.
Yep, exactly. You're getting to the point of what we were going to go over here. So here's the New York Times saying what to know about the planned social media bans around the world. And they talk about Britain, as they call it, which I think Britain is just Scotland, England, and Wales. I could be wrong about that, but does Britain include Northern Ireland? I have no idea. But it says Britain
Uh,
will. Sorry.
yeah, it's not. It's not the whole state
Yeah.
or the whole country. It's just part of it.
But it says Britain will introduce measures to ban social media for children under 16. And they then talk about Australia having done this, and it says 6 months in, most indications are that young teenagers in Australia who are already using social media are still doing so. And then it says, although experts expect the benefits will be felt by the next generation. So I guess there's, you know, maybe a reason that they said that is because I think a lot of the accounts were grandfathered in. Like they can't force people with account. Well, I guess they could, but they haven't forced people that already have accounts to undergo age verification. But if you create a new one, you have to. So I think that's why they're saying it. But it also just seems like one of those things where it's like, well, sure, it's not working, but give it time and it totally will. And we see that all the time. And I don't think it necessarily is guaranteed to work. I think the kids who really want to will just find a way around it.
Well, of course, because all you have to do is look at someone else's.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's your goal to look, then yeah, you could look at someone else's social media. Get someone else to start an account for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought this part was interesting. It says a YouGov poll found that 74% of Britons supported such a ban. So why is the ban then necessary? If you support your children not being on social media, then take steps to prevent it yourself. Like things can be
Right.
blocked, at the internet or router level, like at your house, or don't give them
Right.
a smartphone. Monitor their usage. Make sure if they're on a computer that it's in a family room where you can clearly see what's going on. It's like, are they still going to test the rules and find ways around things? Sure. But it just, to then be like, well, we need the government to step in. We need the federal government to block this and institute age checks for everybody when, I don't know, if 74% of people already thought this way and took steps to make sure their children weren't on social media, this wouldn't be a problem. And
Well, there
maybe,
are such things as parental controls as
yes,
well.
that. Anyway, it continues. It says the government said in a statement on Monday that this would include Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X. Although I think actually it's going to include a lot more, and they were just saying sites such as these, and there's going to be a
Right.
lot more. It says Britain plans to go further than Australia, introducing blocks on live streaming and communication with strangers for children under 16. The government also floated plans to examine overnight curfew and breaks in infinite scrolling for anyone under 18. So I guess somehow turn it off at a certain age or at a certain time if you're 17 or 18 also. It says it will detail more of that in July. It also said that AI chatbots that simulate romantic connection or sexual role play with its users would have to enforce a minimum age of 18. So I guess that would generally be any AI because you can ask AI to do anything. And unless they put some sort of guardrails or ban baked into the AI to where it says, no, I can't do that, that would just be another one where they're going to try to enforce age checks or digital ID checks, not only on social media, but on AI chatbots as well. Taken
Yeah.
together, Britain said the planned restrictions would go further than any other country. And then just to top it all off, it says Mr. Starmer acknowledged the new legislation would not prevent all children from using social media, but he says the government still had to act. So, yeah, it won't work completely, but we got to do something.
Right. Yeah. I think most people see through this. A lot of people see through this anyway. That's since when did they care so much? It's like you have a generation more than a generation of people who have already been ruined by this. It's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a way to, whenever they want to introduce something that people will react to, that people will not like, there are sneaky ways to do it, and this is what this seems like to me. People are going to rebel against the online verification to get online, ID verification to get online. But if we couch it in protect the kids, that's what they always do. It's to protect the children, protect the old people or animals or something that people generally have a soft heart for. And then
Yep.
they'll go along with it if they just put it in those terms.
Yep. So, what would what is it that they want? So, Polymarket here, I guess they're tweeting news randomly. It says, just in, UK government clarifies adults will still be able to use social media by verifying their identities with digital IDs, facial recognition, passports, and credit cards. And
How
then
about
here
that?
on have these a little out of order, but here on the BBC it says which platforms are affected, and then the ones that we named already: YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and X. And then they've included Blue Sky on there because I think people were saying that the absence of them mentioning that meant that it would be exempt because Australia exempted it, weirdly enough. And then, people talk back and forth like, did they exempt it because Blue Sky actually does do the censorship that they want and enforces kind of the, pro-government kind of progressive thought line?
Right.
And I think there's an argument to be made for that. But I think it was also just that Blue Sky was playing ball with age verification so that they then banned anyone under a certain age in Australia. So they're like, well, since you're doing it yourself, I guess you're not. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to exclude them from the law just because they're voluntarily doing it. But whatever. I don't know. But it also says that unknown whether Minecraft, Facebook Messenger, YouTube Kids, or Discord will be affected. And then it sounds like they've somehow found out that WhatsApp, Roblox, and Signal won't be affected, which Signal very much would not make sense. That'd be like banning text messaging because Signal's not a social media app. It's just texting, really.
Right.
And then I guess there's, some amount of chat on Roblox and Minecraft, so they might have to, find a way to restrict adults and children from speaking with each other on there. I don't know, but that's what I guess people know so far about which platform specifically will be banned. And then here's another BBC article called "How the Social Media Ban Could Reshape How All of Us Use the Internet." And I just thought it was funny too. It starts with, "Everyone's really upset, Mum. Loads of them have got their own YouTube channels." So that's some, they say a 12-year-old talking about how everyone's upset because all of his friends have YouTube channels and I guess they'll get kicked off. But it says the exact logistics of the ban have yet to be set out, but it is very possible that this introduction will herald the biggest ever change in the UK in terms of how everyone, children and adults alike, access the internet. Millions of us might have to share some official ID, which includes our birth date, in order to access a whole range of platforms next spring. I guess that was it for this article. So basically, the BBC there acknowledging that, this is wrapped in the help the children kind of propaganda, but it's really going to affect everybody because you have to prove that you're not a child to access it.
Right. And so if you haven't put your biometrics out there to get hacked or your ID out there to get hacked, then, welcome to 2026 because now you're going to have to put that information out there. And we all know that they don't keep any of it secure.
Yeah. Let's see. And then one more article that's just kind of about the nuts and bolts of how this will act or how this will work. This is from Bleeping Computer. It says the catch for adults, it's the new accounts. The government's reassurance is that most adults won't face a fresh check. Although it does say most there. But the carve out is essentially a grandfather clause, and it does nothing for new accounts. If you create a social media account from scratch after these rules land, you'll have to basically undergo the check. So they're saying, like, maybe you want a pseudonymous handle. Like if you want, well, let me start a new account that's not tied to my name. Something where, maybe you have a job that you have to watch what you say or you could get fired. It's like, well, I'll just create one that's not attached to my name. You can't really do that as easily. You would have to upload your ID in order to create that new account. Or, maybe you've just never made the transition over to, like, you've been using Facebook. And you're like, well, let me go see what Instagram or X is all about. That would then, since you're a first-time user, mean either a facial recognition check or an ID upload. So there's a lot of reasons why, somebody might create a new account, even as an adult, and they would then have to undergo one of those. It says, in practice, the regime quietly converts what's billed as a child protection into a rule that no adult can open a new account without proving their age. And I thought this was interesting too. It says since July 2025, basically the same thing has been in effect for adult and other sensitive sites. It says they had to run highly effective age checks. So basically, if you want to view whatever an adult site, or I don't know what they even mean by other sensitive site, but this is already in place. So it kind of shows you how this thing creeps, where it might start somewhere where you're like, oh, that's, not something I do, so who cares? But then it's eventually going to make its way to something you do. And then last thing here, I just thought was funny. It's just a British thing. It says Ofcom has been asked to run a rapid study, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I just thought the word Ofcom was funny. It's the Office of Communications, but that really sounds like a newspeak word.
Yeah.
Like they're not really trying to hide or, distance themselves from like, oh, that sounds just like 1984. We shouldn't do that. But,
yeah.
But, all right. Well, thoughts on all this?
It's creepy. It is so obviously one of those things where it's intended to start small with expansion in mind. Like, for example, the example that you gave about adult sites, and that reminds me of the people who talk about, like, well, I'm not doing this, so I have nothing to worry about. And they can't foresee how that, what I would call scope creep, will come into play. If you are not worried about flock cameras because I'm not doing anything wrong, well, maybe one day you will have some horrible authoritarian government in place and the things that you do will be considered wrong. Maybe what if going to church is wrong and you go to church, and people don't, those things, I understand that it sounds far-fetched, but you have to think about those things and think about what is the worst case scenario for this and make that a consideration. And this is what bothers me about some of these public officials that vote for this. And they have the sheriff's office or the police department or whatever come in and give their pitch. And they don't take the time on their own to do the due diligence on the other side of it. I feel like if you were a public official, you have to always be playing devil's advocate and say, okay, well, what about this? And what about this? And they're not doing that. They just do the first thing that they hear, they go along with it. And I think that a lot of lawmakers that put these things into play, oh, protecting the children. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
They don't think about how could this be misused? What are some of the worst case scenarios? They just don't even consider it.
And you can
Or
see in the in
even
the
if they
case of
do
that one
consider
guy. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Even if they do consider it, they maybe don't want to be seen as voting against the Child Safety
Yeah,
Act
for
because that
sure.
makes them look bad.
Well, I guess in the worst scenario too, it's like the guy at the beginning of the show we talked about, where it's like when confronted with these things from his own constituents, they're written off as ridiculous too. It's not even just
Yeah,
that I didn't think of these. It's like, well, people told me their concerns, and now I'm making fun of them.
right.
And I
And
don't think everybody's going to go and write a stupid letter like he did, but how many of them privately hold those same thoughts?
at the end of the day, you are a representative, and a representative government is something that is basically done for efficiency, for one thing. We don't have to have every single person vote on every single issue. Those people can just elect people that they trust to represent them. So you are supposed to represent your constituency. And if your constituency says, we don't want this, then you should vote against it. And if you can in good conscience do that, then step down.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I feel like we somehow got back to talking about Flock almost with that, even from the UK ban, but it's really kind of the
Yeah.
same idea, and wrapped two different ways. One's think about the safety and the safety of your children on the street. We need to be able to watch everybody. And the other one's think of the safety of your children on the internet. And we need to watch everybody and ban them where we've, appropriate and make everybody identify themselves. So let's see, real quick. I know we usually do like an update of what Banished Big Brother's been up to. So this week we had something to talk about where I won't show it on screen just because this guy gave us like screenshots of his phone and stuff, and I don't want to didn't edit any of this out. But somebody emailed us saying that they're researching what's going on in their hometown and their city council or county council, and they basically found out that um, where's the a discussion regarding the contract with New Jersey State Police regarding automated license plate readers and things to that effect was happening in a closed session or executive session. So basically, to avoid, it seems like, any public scrutiny or any questions from the public, they're just going into executive session where my understanding is that is supposed to be used to discuss things like, employee matters, like our secretary is bullying somebody. We need to talk about disciplinary issues, or somebody's asking for a raise and we're going to discuss their pay or something like that. Those things would happen in an executive session, not we are going to talk about this contract that is in the public interest. And this seems to be another trick that, it's that the city council and boards in general will use this when they're not acting ethically.
Yeah, definitely a stretch, I think. I think it's okay to call out that particular county.
Yeah, let me
Do
see
you
if I can
think?
find it. Yeah, the county is fine. Let me see if I can find the name of it real quick. Uh, what is? Well, it's definitely New Jersey, so we're down to that. Let me see if I can find the name of it. I think it's.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I almost found it. Let me just search real quick. Make sure I got the name of this right.
Yeah, I think that that it is important for the people in that county to know that your government is choosing to make their discussions of their flock contract behind closed doors where you cannot participate in it.
Yeah, it's
And perhaps don't even know.
Hunterdon County. So it's in, where in New Jersey is the? Yes, some of the cities I'm seeing there is Clinton, Flemington, Delaware Township. Oh, it kind of looks like, I'm not familiar with New Jersey at all, if I'm being honest. It kind of looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere-ish. Between Allentown and New York.
Well, I did go out and I looked up the open meetings legislation for New Jersey. And there was one issue that, and I believe it's the one that they were pointing to, that said that one exception for going into an executive session is matters that regard the public safety. So a sane interpretation of that would be that if you didn't discuss this privately, it would endanger the public. For some reason, you have to discuss this privately.
Yeah.
And that is being stretched to include discussions of flock cameras.
Yeah. So I see on the list, too, of other things they talked about in executive session. One of them is discussion regarding county engineer vacancy. And that almost seems like something that you could conceivably go into executive session for. Because you got to be like, all right, like our engineer, Jimmy, he quit. He made, $70,000 a year and he quit because he was mad about X, Y, and Z. I don't know. If you want to talk about things like that, I don't know why the city council or county council would be talking about that. But if it had to do with like a particular employee, maybe.
Right.
And even the salary things aren't the best reason, because I think all of it's public when you work for the government. You can be
salary should be public record. Yeah.
But I don't know. But if you're like, yeah, Jimmy got fired because he was doing XYZ and now we need a new engineer, like that might be something that you really do want to go into executive session for, to not talk about this person openly. But almost
matters
everything else
of discipline.
Yeah.
Disciplinary matters. Or if they're interviewing people for that position and no one has been chosen yet.
Yeah, that would be it.
And they're discussing private things that have to do with applicants. Something like that makes sense.
Yeah. But or here's one: potential litigation over municipal zoning. So I think talking about potential litigation might be another legitimate reason to go into executive session. Like, it hasn't happened yet. We're not being sued, but we might be. So we need to, I guess, talk about that and game plan what we're going to do. But almost everything on here else, like, especially the license plate readers, discussion regarding guarantee of government loans projects. Like, I don't understand why some of these would need to be hidden from the public.
Doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah. One thing I would be interested to know, though, is, are there minutes from what was discussed in the executive session, and how detailed are they? And then also I would want to make sure that no voting had been done during executive session. Because I think, even if you are discussing the discipline of some employee and, you might vote to fire them that night, that can't be done in executive session. You would have to come back from your discussion back into open session and then hold the vote to get rid of them.
That would be my understanding, that, things can only be discussed in executive session and not voted on.
But I don't know. This is very suspicious to me, just that would take place. And it was, every one of them voted to go into executive session. There was One person absent, the rest of them all eyes. Let's do it. Let's talk about this behind closed doors. All right. Well, let's go on to our last story here. So, we are seeing this trend of where people don't like flock cameras. They don't like these that are big and obvious on poles and you can spot them easily. So it looks like some some places are catching on and they're trying to disguise them. So this is from Wall Street Apes on X. They say these are brand new disguised automated license plate reader cameras in Arizona. The large yellow plastic barrels are camouflaged housing designed to look like construction equipment. They are being deployed in remote desert areas along highways. These new camouflaged cameras are a partnership between Flock, surprise, surprise, and law enforcement, and the plan is to use them extensively to track vehicle movement and border surveillance. And it says, we are witnessing the surveillance state being established in America. This only ends in mass surveillance, which, I mean, we're kind of there already. But, if you're watching this on video, you can see these things kind of look like traffic cones. They're not, the big orange ones that I'm used to seeing. But if I drove by one of these, I probably wouldn't give it a second glance because it looks like just something that you would see in a construction zone. Yellow barrel with a black top, and this guy walks up to it and you can clearly see the camera and the sticking out pointed both directions, so I guess it gets both lanes coming and going. And then there's a cable going out the back of it. I guess that's for power, maybe for data, but so there we go. I guess that's one thing, and people are. I mean, the thing is, it's already the cat's out of the bag. If they would have started like this, maybe no one would have ever caught on. But people are aware of flock cameras enough that I don't think they'll accept the disguised ones. Although I think they're going to try.
Yeah, I think that this is something that we talked about before. That when I first started working on the surveillance issue, I couldn't get anybody to, or most people, I should say, to really pay attention to it because it was so invisible. You had those fisheye cameras that they had everywhere, and they're just not that noticeable the way that flock cameras are. And people, it just didn't occur to them. They couldn't see it everywhere, and therefore they didn't emotionally feel like they were being watched. And this is part of my concern, is that getting rid of flock cameras isn't really enough. It's something that we definitely need to be working on, but the language of what we need is things that protect us from surveillance.
Yeah.
No matter where it's from. Just ending flock camera contracts is not going to be enough. And you have I saw where these electrical type boxes that are on poles and so forth.
Yeah, we have that here too.
Cameras in the sides of those. So yeah, we have to have laws against surveillance, that they cannot do this.
Yep.
And I wonder too if part of that is actually protecting the cameras as well from people who are vandalizing them.
Perhaps, although I mean, I still see cameras all over the place. I mean, we see the news every now and then that one gets taken down here and there, but there doesn't seem to be a widespread thing like the Blade Runners in the UK yet. So
it is. It's picking up though. It's picking up. Yeah.
Well, here's the other one. The one that you were talking about, it says, it's also from Wall Street Apes. It says, American law enforcement is hiding cameras inside fake utility boxes. This box looks like an electric box. It even has an electric bolt symbol as a decoy, but it's fake. Inside is a camera that is used by law enforcement to monitor the public. Law enforcement uses these decoy boxes attached to utility poles for surveillance. Says in many U.S. jurisdictions, long-term warrantless pole camera surveillance of public areas or homes from a distance has been upheld by courts. And over the weekend, me and my wife and we all took a trip up to Chattanooga, and along the way, I saw on the interstate one of those overhead cameras where, they're kind of like on a, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like they're above the lanes, almost like you expect them to be like those things that communicate with trucks and get their logs or whatever as they pass way stations. They look like that, except it was much more makeshift, where it was on temporary, kind of overhead infrastructure. And I believe those are cameras that look down into your car. So they can, I suppose, see if you're holding a phone. Although the weird thing is I didn't see police nearby. So you would think it would be, they're monitoring it, they see you holding a phone, and then they come chase you down. I don't know. In this case, is it they see you, they get it on camera, and they then send you a ticket in the mail later? Or is it really that they're just doing more data collection, just seeing what's in people's cars and following up on it later?
Their cell phone and also seat belts. But so the ones that I've seen, there are police nearby, and they basically dispatch the police as someone rides underneath, and they see it. I don't think at this point that they have any automatic ticketing, but of course, it's just a very small step towards that.
Yeah. And then, like you said, that doesn't sound like flock. It just sounds like invasive surveillance. So just saying that county can't use flock would not be sufficient, because then there would still be, overhead peeking into your car or, other types of surveillance. So yeah, just like you're saying, more laws that say you have to respect privacy and you can't, mass surveillance type things are banned would really be the goal here.
And Flock isn't the only company that's doing this. It's the most prevalent one, and the one that everyone is familiar with. But there are lots of other companies that are doing this too. So it can't be Flock specific, and it can't be ALPR specific either. It needs to be a very broad protection against surveillance.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of the stories we had lined up to talk about. And I don't know, was there anything else on your mind, or any updates or anything to get out there?
I think we covered a bunch.
Cool. Well, in 2 weeks, we're going to try to record our first episode with a guest. So hopefully that goes well. And then if that works and our setup works well and everything, went smoothly, hopefully, then we're going to start doing more of those. And we have some pretty cool guests lined up or coming very soon. Guess that's all I'll say about that for now. But I'm excited about that. I hope everything goes well, and you can start. We're basically going to, I think, keep the same format of just kind of chit-chatting and talking about surveillance and reading the news and talking about these stories, but we'll just have a third person in the mix with us.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people out there doing really good work, and I'm excited to be able to feature those people as well, and discuss some of the people that are out there in the field, so to speak, doing good things, making a difference.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back then. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. See ya.
Bye-bye.